Hey everyone, it's Spicy Sushi. So, if you did not know, today the Flash Breach node got nerfed. We had 10 rares taken away, which does change things quite a bit, but I am going to go over why there is kind of a community overreaction to this, and I'm going to cover every single region of the points that I think are good after all the changes have been through and after passive points have been arranged. I do have a video coming out over an extremely strong strategy that I think is quite overpowered for day one, and I'm not going to release that until pretty close to the league start because I never would have thought GGG would actually do pre-league nerfs based on YouTube stuff. But after seeing that latest video, yeah, I'm going to be releasing that strategy a bit closer to league start to try to avoid some kind of nerf as much as possible. Now, the region, Lira Arthain, my choices have really not changed. The thing is, people don't realize is we're not in a vacuum, right? Just because we don't have 10 additional rares and we don't have those guaranteed 10 to 12 splinters or whatever per breach doesn't mean it isn't going to be good. There is still an incredible demand for breach stones early, and because of breaches have the area of increased area effect and increased monster density still, we are going to see a variable amount of rares, but it's still going to be a decent variable. There's not going to be as many people doing breach and Lira Arthain now. But there's still going to be a massive demand for breach stones, and there's not going to be many breach stones being created quite as fast as they were in the past. So I think they're going to hold much more value than they have in the past, simply because flash breach is gone. Now, so basically, I would still take the 3 breach nodes, and I would still take the expedition nodes, but there is more options now. So if you don't want to do breach at all, you could do exotic goods, you could do heist, and you could do beast farming, which I don't totally recommend unless you really know what you're doing. That is really specialized, and it also is extremely tedious if you're going to be selling yellow beasts. But anyway, yeah, so if you could drop within their grasp, because it is an extremely low chance at giving you the full value, and you could just take gatekeepers and flash breach just to get a lot of splinters, because you're going to get bosses still for splinters, and you're going to get a lot of density and monsters for splinters as well. I would not take Flash Breach if it didn't have this open and close 50% faster, but because it still has this, it's still just incredible. I would never want to do a breach if it doesn't have this modifier on it. But then if you took Gatekeeper's Flash, you could take the whole 3 Expedition cluster, which I think Expedition now, this is going to be much closer to what Breach is now as well. So you could get the benefit of the splinters and the full benefit of the Expedition. Now Heist is still, I'm not a huge fan of it unless it was on the map device. I would be putting Breach on the map device and using maybe an Expedition Scarab, or just getting the natural Scarabs. If you haven't seen my video, please go check it out, because I do go over how you can just infinitely sustain this region in white maps and still get the full value out of Breach. But if you were going to go for a max investment Expedition, you would want to do this in higher tier maps, because Expedition does scale with map tier. Now, let's go ahead and move on to Valdos. So I hadn't touched on Valdos yet, but I'm really not a fan of the delirium changes, because now this persecutory delusion was really, really good with 20% delirium orb juice. Now, these two values lose, I believe, an incredible amount of strength because I don't think these apply to delirium orbs at all. You're gonna have to get natural delirium, which you're gonna need sextants for that. If you want to get natural delirium, if you want natural delirium guaranteed on your map, you really have to roll the sextant. But and so this is the only really good one, I think, for 20% delirium orb, because delirium orbs are very cheap early, and a lot of people love to put 20% delirium on their maps when they're in T14 to T16. And that's where this node really comes into power. But you're not going to get benefit from these, only the small nodes, I would assume. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of delirium. In my opinion, now Nico is for the Delvers. If you're a Delver, you know what you're doing. If you're not a Delver, I would not even look at these nodes. And I think Twice Tempted and Tamper Proof is very weak early on. This should really be in a zone that is juiced with Beyond. And Nemesis farming, which it is not. So I'm not going to talk much on this. I'm mainly going to talk about Blight. Blight and Harbinger are the two things that I would go with. Harbingers, especially if you put a Scarab on it, you're going to get a lot of map sustain. Even if you're in T14 to T16, these Harbingers are going to be dropping an incredible amount of maps. And that is going to help you. And just outside the currency and everything, you're going to get maps to help sustain this zone. Now, the way you would do this is you would put 4 Watchstones in this zone, and you would take Watchstones out of every other zone. And when you do that, you're going to see, and you favorite the maps that you want in this region, which it could be Tower, could be Strand, could be whatever you want. You're going to see a lot more return. Now, people do like to put their Blights and maps where it will spawn in a certain way to where there's like a lot of chests. I'm not like a lot of Blight chests only. And so that is going to be what a lot of people do. And I'm not exactly sure how that goes. But even if you don't do that, Blights are going to be very big because people need to get into these Ravaged Blight maps. Now, the way you get those is you get a T14 plus Blighted map, which is going to drop from Blights in these maps. You would have to get the Atlas or the map device craft, which is the highest unlock tier. So you're gonna have to do a lot of map progression for this strategy. This is not an early on, not a very beginner friendly strategy, but you would get into the T14 to T16 map tiers. You would have your map device completed, and you'd be able to put Blight on every single map you do. Now you could just use Scarabs, but I think unless Scarabs are really cheap, this is going to be just the better method to do as map device. If Scarabs are cheap though, you can do this much earlier than before you get the map device unlocked. And if you do a T14 plus map, you can get a T14 plus Blighted map. People are going to be buying those like crazy because they want to get the Ravage Blighted maps. So you could just not even do the Blighted maps if your build can't handle it. You can just do the maps, farm Blighted maps, sell these to Blighted map runners who are going to be running that as well. So this is going to be a lot of money later on in the league, though. This is not going to be a very week one, friendly to most players. So let's go ahead and move on to Haewark. So if you haven't seen my video on Haewark, go ahead and check it out. Metamorphs did get changed because high yield has been brought back to its past league form, so it's actually really strong. Now, I would not change my choices from the video. I think the choices that I chose there are still going to be the best. If we're considering that everyone that's doing it loves to do essences, everyone loves to do ritual, people like to do harvest. Now, not everyone's like that, and so I am going to give some alternatives. If you don't like to do ritual, I would probably take the high yield, and I would take the escaped experiment node. But if you do like ritual, I would take this. I would say essences, you just have to take a baseline. You're going to be missing out on so much free money every single map if you don't do this. But another thing to talk about is that the syndicate nodes were split up. A lot of people don't realize this yet, but bribery is on its own next to Test of Loyalty, Intelligence Gathering. Now, Intelligence Gathering is harder to get now, but this bribery node is quite amazing because it is going to get a lot of passive currency if you get Syndicate in your map, if you use Syndicate. Now, personally, I've never heard of anyone using a Syndicate node without using the others, because I think you get some flat chance at getting more Jun missions. But so I think you would be missing out. But anyway, bribery, it's interesting that they separated this because bribery is a source of a few like triple exalt drops, triple currency, scarabs, all this kind of stuff. So it is an option there. You could take this instead of the Grove's Call if you just don't want to mess with harvest whatsoever. That's why I kind of brought it up. So yeah, there is that. Now, let's move on to, but yeah, anyway, I would not change anything from my video, but basically the only thing that's changed technically is that if you don't like ritual, you could actually do metamorph now and get a lot of catalysts. Now, if you did this method though, you really have to use polished plus scarabs because you're going to get horrible value out of your metamorph if you're not scarabing. But there that is. This takes no Atlas passive or no real progression on your Atlas to really do, because essences scale insignificantly with map tier, but you would want to. So that's why we get it first. And And the map device craft is super early on, so you can get that very early. Now let's go ahead and move to Glennach. Glennach is a beast. I'm going to admit this now. I think this is going to be maybe one of, if not the highest earning Atlas regions in the game, late league. Like I mean very late, when Nemesis currency farming becomes a thing, because we have Beyond on the Xana map device, and we have Beyond on these Atlas nodes. You can get Beyond on a Sextant, you can get Beyond on your Watchstone, so you could technically even get Beyond on your map. So people are going to be looking at possible ×4, like quad Beyond to 5 times Beyond on their maps. And when you have that many rares, and you have Nemesis currency, and you have Abyss, people are going to be taking Abyss just for the literally just for the more rares. It's going to be an insane amount of money that people are going to be making from this place. But that is late league with builds that are very, very strong, because you're going to be wanting to do very delirious maps and very strong content, which is why I'm not covering it pre-league, because this is something that I'm going to be covering later in the league. Now, but the people that are extremely hardcore players, the people that play like 20 plus hours a day at the start, they're going to be trying to get to this. Teams are going to be trying to get to this very early on. But for those of you that don't do that, there is Alva. Alva is something that a video is made basically every single league about how strong Alva is for casual players, for beginner players, for veterans alike, because all you need is Alva missions. The map tier doesn't matter at all, and you can be making 3 to 4 exalts profit per hour. So this is something that you would want to do later if you're like coming into the league late, if you're a beginner veteran just looking for something very chill, because you can go do a scoured map as long as you have Alva missions and build temples. But yeah, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can just look up Alva temple farming. I'm going to have a video out later this league about it as well when I get more Alva missions, and I can show you guys some examples. Now, early league, and I don't mean that early because Legion is very far in on the map device. You could do Legion. Now, I think the best thing to pair this with would be the Rogue Trader and Total Anarchy. You're going to get an absurd amount of jewelry from the Rogue Exiles. You're going to get a lot of things from the Rogue Trader. If you didn't know, the Rogue Trader basically is that these wild Rogue Exiles that are going to be spawning in your map, they could have like Legion style rewards over their heads. And so you can get the Legion rewards from Legion, and then Legion rewards basically from the wild, the Rogue Exiles that you're going to get in your map. I don't think I'd recommend this though. Emblematic was taken away. The Sergeants still have not been buffed back to their ritual state. The only thing this strategy has going for it is the fact that you can get double Legions guaranteed with a Rusted Legion Scarab and Legion on the map device. I think a lot of people are really overhyping this node or this Legion in this next patch, when I think it's going to be extremely lackluster, even compared to just even doing post-nerf Flash Breach. I think this is going to be much stronger. But anyway, yeah, that's my recap. I am releasing that other strategy on the 20th. I'm not comfortable after the nerfs of GGG just nerfing things that are on YouTube right now to release that guide, because it is incredibly overpowered. So that's going to be out then, and I'm going to release a harvest overview on my thoughts on harvest, on farming harvest later as well. So thank you guys, and I'll see you in the league.